Hola, mujeres.
Hola.
Welcome to our next episode of our podcast. Today, we're talking about, so Rosie and I, again, like conversational as usual, but Rosie and I recently, just to preface it, we recently traveled. We actually, as you guys know, we work for the same company in different areas, but just different, same division essentially. And we both had to travel for a major event that the team that I'm part of actually put together. And we were away for a long time. I want to say like about 10 days or so. And her and I were talking about how difficult it is to be away from our kids. And one of the conversations we had was about, oh, why don't we talk about how we manage being away from our kids and our family for such a long time? So today we bring to you this episode to provide some tips about those working moms that do have to travel or are required to travel within their responsibilities at work, and how we, our experiences and how we manage that can maybe help you and support you, and providing some tips so that whenever you do have to do that, you have an idea as to how we manage it, and maybe you'll take some tips and know how to do it as well.
It's all about helping you find good, easy tricks and not feeling alone because, like I've always said in many episodes, I always felt like, oh, I'm alone. And then the more I hear, I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one, or I don't have it as bad. So,
Yes. So again, we'll dive right in because we think, again, it's an important topic, and we both somehow have done it. I guess like the same way, but obviously like one of us has maybe a little more support than other than
one
the
is more
other.
organized.
One of us is a little more organized. So, there are things that we do the same, but there are other things that we do different. And so like just pick and choose what works better for you. And because we really thought that it would be beneficial to everyone out there that also has a job that requires them to travel, to be able to just learn how we do it as well. So we'll dive right in. So one of the first things that we do, and this we both have in common, it's planning and prioritizing. So for sure, finding someone that you trust, right? Whether it be your parents or an aunt, so like a family member, a friend that you actually trust that can stay with your kids for, and actually it's available and willing to stay with your children for that amount of time. If it's not your significant other, so your partner, because we do understand that not everyone has, a partner. But if it's not them, make sure that you have those people that you trust that can stay with your child, and that are willing to continue like the routines and like do drop off, like if you have school agers, like drop offs and pickups at school, and the bedtime routine, and like if there's homework. So all of that, you kind of have to encompass it and make sure that whoever is staying with your kids and your family, they understand how to actually pick up and and continue that work.
For me, I would say I've said in other episodes is I'm super blessed. I have my mother-in-law and my mom. This time around, it was just my mom as the primary caregiver. Um, I would say that, how do you say it? She holds them hostage from daddy, my husband. Like he goes to pick them up and he's like, no, déjalo aquí. And um, but yes, I do. But she has some appointments, for example. So I make sure, like, with my husband, like, hey, on this day, you're gonna drop off um the son that goes to school. You're gonna stay with the daughter. She ended up going in the trucks with daddy, so she had a fun day with daddy at work. Which that also, I would say that we gotta look at those type of things that our kids don't get to do with their dad or their other caregivers when we're around because it's not part of their routine. Um, and then, so, we just worked around that. And another thing is like, okay, I have learned that I need to pack not just for myself, but for my kids for that entire time frame. So just planning out what events they're going to be going to. Like my kids are in swimming school, so making sure that was packed, and for school and their snacks and just everything that we normally do was just thinking ahead and thinking like, hey, I'm not going to be here. How can I make it easier? So it's just writing it out for them, set an expectation, even for my daughter, do a countdown like, hey, this is 9 days that mommy will be gone. And you can start crossing it out to create that excitement.
And I think so. One of the things that we also leverage for sure, and I know that I do, is a calendar. We do have whether it be a like a you write it down with a pen or pencil,
Mhm.
or markers calendar like on your wall so that the caregivers like know kind of like what's happening, or the way I do it, we do have a digital calendar that my sister has access to, because my sister is one of our caregivers, and so when we're not here, she does a lot of the pickups, the drop-offs, and she stays with the kids. So I try to extend the access to those people that
Mhm.
are supporting us. Different from our parents though, because my parents are very old school, so they don't really understand that. But at least I have my sister, and so for me, when we left
Mhm.
for that amount of time, which also my husband works for the same company, and he also had to travel for the same event, so we were away for a long time. And so my parents, thankfully, I had my parents here, and they were able to stay with the kids. Mind you, they can't do the whole like drop off and pick up because they don't really understand how some of those things work, and like daycare is very like
Particular.
particular about like who picks up your kids, and you have to have them on a list, and I didn't have time to add my parents. And so if there was any sort of communication between the daycare and my parents, like that wasn't going to happen because my parents also speak Spanish only. So we did have like a whole village. I had my parents here doing the routines, the bathing, the putting to bed, the feeding them, like, and just making sure things were running as usual. And then I also had my sister that was doing the pickup, the drop off, the doing the homeworks, or taking them, to anything that needed to happen. So like I had a handful of people. This is not for the weak. You have to have support. You have to have a village. And it's true. We've always said this before. You do, again, like you can't do it alone. Like you do have to
Mhm.
have a village. And so that's the great thing about doing this with family and friends that are able to actually support you and step in and like help when needed.
Mhm.
But going back to the calendar thing, so it's important to have a calendar. I was able to we have like, just as an example, right now we have like an iPhone, like the regular iPhone calendars that like you can sync with, like, and add like a partner or anyone.
Mhm.
You add the email address on there, and then like they have access to like your entire calendar. And so on there, I would be specific for my sister to know, like, oh, my son has like it happened that he had like a pajama day, and I wanted to make sure that he was wearing pajamas. My parents didn't really know that, and I didn't, it was kind of hard to remind them. So I was like, hey, it's going to be on the calendar this day, he needs to wear pajamas. And any additional thing that needed to happen was on that calendar, so she knew that she didn't have to ask me because everything was on there
Mhm.
essentially. So it is very important to be able to have those additional things, events that are happening on a calendar. The one thing that I wanted to plug into is that we did make an investment, to which I haven't gotten it yet, but at some point I'll probably give you a review
Cassandra's bougie, guys. Listen.
and test that out. But we did get an actual family digital calendar, like an actual monitor. We
Mm.
haven't gotten it, but I really have a lot of high
Excited to
expectations
see it. Yes.
for this calendar, because you can actually divide, sync any calendar you have with the actual monitor, and then you can have under each person of the household, if they have any appointments or anything happening, it would be under that specific person. And so it's really nice to go there and see, like, oh, today, like my son has this, or like my daughter has like a pediatrician, appointment, or whatever, or like I have personal things like self-care stuff that I want to do. And it's on there, so my husband knows that that day that's what's happening. So it's really nice to be able to see, like, I guess, like,
Mhm.
I don't know, visually, like what's going
Yeah.
on, what every family member has going on. And additionally, you can add like chores or actual
Make
activities,
it
and
fun for kids too.
right, make it fun, and they can go in there and be like, oh, yep, I brushed my teeth, or like, yep,
Yeah.
I picked up, or whatever. So I really have high expectations
It's
when I
that
get
feeling
it.
of the check on the box of the
Yes.
to-do list.
So when I do get it, like, I really want to show you guys how it looks like, because I'm really excited that we all get to have our own, we can see what everybody has going on, for
Make sure you
sure.
get an affiliate link for that, girl. Or you could just keep it simple and I just use my notes section on my phone. And I go and mark things off. But the whole point of this of behind planning and being organized is doesn't matter if you use pen and paper, you use your phone, sit down. Like I visualize what needs to happen this day, and I write down per day what is going to happen and what is needed. That way, then you go onto the calendar. You do the calendar, or you just make sure you got everything ducks in the row for each day.
And the next thing that we have here is trust your network. So if you are very organized and like to do things a certain way, so because I am personally, so it
I'm not, guys. So you guys haven't gotten the point.
so it is really
Only in
difficult,
my head.
right? But it is really difficult to have, at least for me, honestly, because I like to plan a lot and I'm super organized. But it is difficult to allow other people to do things for my family when I'm away because I do it better. At least that's my mentality.
Mm.
But we do have to realize that again, it takes a village. They're doing this out of like what love. Like they're
Yes.
actually trying to support you,
Yeah.
and you just have to accept that they're not gonna do it the same way you do it, but it will get done, and that's what matters. And
Hmm.
so those are things that like we just have to remind ourselves. Like if you're super type A like me, that like oh no, I need it to be that way. But at least like maybe it wasn't done that way, but at least like they got it done and they
Hmm.
didn't miss
Be
it. So
grateful for that. Like
exactly.
they're being loved, they're alive, and they're well taken
And things
care
are
of.
happening, right? Like maybe they missed something, but at the end of the day, like it is what it is, right? My little
I gotta show this to them. This is a pen. I mean, this wasn't part of it, but it says it is what it is. It came in a package. You didn't don't care about that. Anyways.
so that's something that we just have to, as women and as mothers and like having other people taking care of our kids, we just have to allow them to do that for us,
Yeah.
even though it's not gonna be us doing it.
Yeah. I know many moms are particular about what their kids wear. I remember I packed like I'm not I don't care. Like if with my mom, I say she does a better job than I do. These kids are in bed. Like they have a routine with my mom, and they'll have a routine with me. Anyways, but I'm like, if I pack a certain way the clothes with everything, even underwear and socks, like why do they not wear the matching outfits I left for them? Before I used to think about that, and now when I see them on camera, I'm like, okay, whatever. But they're dressed. So
And
just
that's
to
what
give you
matters.
guys, yeah, just to give you
Exactly.
guys an example, like Jana is like very organized, like she has this mindset, and for me, that I'm not very organized or not a type A, of course. But we still, as a mom, you're like, oh, you have the expectation, and even though we should be grateful that someone else is taking the time to be with your precious ones, that it is what it is at the end of the day. Like, look at the important, the bigger picture, important stuff.
The other thing is try to stay in contact with your kids daily.
Hmm.
And there are so many apps out there that like FaceTime, WhatsApp, and even
Yeah.
like the social media apps have, I mean, not encouraging this for younger kids, but I'm just like, just to say that there's just a lot of technology out there that allows us to be able to have
Yeah.
that quality time, even though it's not like in person, but like you can still actually talk to your kids daily. And I know even though some of us travel to places where the time
I
difference,
would say time
right?
zone.
The time
That
zone and the
that
time
was
difference is it's different, right? Like it's a lot of hours in between, like you're here and then and so that it's a little difficult, but I think you can still plan to
yeah.
make time where you are to ensure that you're still having contact with your kids, even like
Hmm.
before bedtime or something.
Yeah. So I mean, and this we had a time difference of 3 hours. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is because by the time you leave your work shift, like 5 or 6, which is already 9 or 10 at home, that's already
Yeah.
past bedtime for your kids. So I do use Instagram with my son. So we share, but he's gonna be 11. Um, but we share reels, like
Oh,
like that was his way of like staying connected to mommy. Like, hey, I can't talk to mommy today, but I'm gonna share a funny reel with her. Like he has stopped. He used to do that at the beginning, and now I noticed he started to do that. I'm like, oh, papito, you sent me reels. Like, yeah, he's not gonna talk to him. I was like, oh, let me send this to mommy. So then I would send him some stuff too if I had the time because we're on these work trips. Like I don't know, but we barely have time. We just work and eat. Anyways, um, and then, of course, the WhatsApp calls on this trip, since of the time difference and just being so busy the whole time, I didn't do as many video calls, but at least texting. Like when I would wake up and see a text from my son, "Hi, mommy," and it would say it came in at 5:35 a.m. when it was actually like 7:35 a.m. for him, but I was still in bed. So definitely is being intentional. Like if you're able to have a specific time to set up to call your kids, that way they're like, "Hey, mommy's in the car at this time." You can, and if you can't, that's totally fine. Like they're still so grateful. And sometimes you'll notice that they don't even really want to talk that long. They just want to keep playing or doing whatever that they're
That's
doing.
true.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, that's fine. Peace out."
Yeah. So even like literally like less than 5 minutes, like it would still
Yeah.
be in their books. Like I
They had a
spoke to my mom.
connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like at least I spoke to my mom today type of thing.
Mhm.
The next thing we have here that Rosie and I were talking about was to, if you have a partner, make sure you communicate with them to make sure you are on the same page. So meaning they have to be willing to do those like domestic duties that like you would have to do when you're home, because those still need to get done. Like, laundry is still going to be piling up, like the dishes still have to be done, somebody has to cook and do those things. So like you have to make sure that the expectation, they understand that, like, I'm going to be away, so somebody has to, additionally to the kids stuff,
Mhm.
somebody has to be able to do this other thing. So like make sure you communicate. And just like I said before, like if you have a partner that also has to travel within the time frame that you're traveling as well, make sure that you have a backup as well. Make sure that whoever this person chooses, like if you guys choose that the parents, the grandparents will
Mhm.
stay with the kids, make sure that they also communicate those, I guess, like that information to the grandparents. Although grandparents are really good at like, oh, whatever they cook,
Yeah.
they clean, whatever. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like if it's a friend or whatever, like you have to make sure that they understand that those things still have to happen. Like I know that may be like a whole, I don't know, like that's another topic. Like if they want to do those things, but I feel like that comes with
Yeah,
the
like it's like adding on to your sister. Like she's already picking up and dropping off. I don't know if you want to add on to your sister. Like,
right,
all right, you're gonna help my our mom wash the dishes, or
right.
maybe she will because she'll cook for all of them. Pero
Right. So
yeah,
I
it's
guess like, but those are conversations that need to be had.
yeah
And they may be a
ahead
little
of time.
uncomfortable because some people may not think that that's something they need to do other than just like get the kids ready and do whatever. So you have to make sure that there's like you're on the same page.
I'll be honest. The only time my husband washes dishes if it's I'm traveling. So the only time he makes breakfast for himself if I'm traveling. So it's like you'll be surprised that our spouses are fully capable of doing everything that you do for them when you're not around. So it this time around I was surprised. I'm like, oh, I could tell he made food multiple times because I could tell by the fridge. That's something else. Like besides kids, you have a spouse. Like for me, I had to make sure I left him like his
With the
breakfast stuff,
right,
like stuff for him to
like
eat.
groceries and things like that
Yeah.
ready,
So
so they like quick and easy things that they could
yeah.
do on their own,
But
I
I'm
guess.
spoiled, so my mom would still do the cooking. I mean, he would make breakfast for himself, but so my kids are at my parents' house. They even though they love it. My parents have a grocery store, so my son would call, "Papa, tráeme esto, tráeme lo otro." So he would just call
I
and
get
say,
why.
"Get me this for snack for school tomorrow." So this time around, I didn't have to prepare snacks ahead of time, just some of them, but still, like it that's something out of the norm for my parents. So, like for my mom, like she would have to prepare snacks for him, and it's like, hey, like she did it, and I even have to tell her this time. Like she was, I mean, it's not the first time I traveled. So by the
So
beginning, I
she's used to it.
remember,
Yeah.
yeah, when I had my younger daughter, I would make baby food, leave it all prepared.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that you're bringing that up, because also it depends on like what stage your kids are in,
Yeah,
right? So like if you do have a baby
this
that needs,
time,
like, it's not eating like actual food, you
yeah,
have to make sure that you leave that stuff ready and that you provide instructions, right? Like if
yes,
they're taking formula, like, okay, how many bottles a day, like how many, so like it's an extra, I think it's a lot of like
yeah,
an extra level of instructions and
hmm
things like that, but those things are need to be done to make
yeah,
sure that like you know they get the whatever they need while you're gone.
This time, I would say this trip, even though it was longer, I didn't have to take that much stuff to my mom's house. Like, it was
Because
just,
the older they are, the least,
yes.
they
But I
need.
remember before it was like, oh my gosh, all the frozen breast milk and all the bottles, and then like, the dates of the baby food, and the diet, if
Or
you have
like,
a young
what
one,
can they eat,
everything.
what can they not eat, what can they give them,
So
because also like grandparents are very, at least like our parents are Dominicans, right? So they're used to a different kind of like, and that could be a
culture.
whole nother topic, right?
Yes.
So they would give the baby whatever it is they think it's okay
Yeah.
when you didn't
Haven't
tell them,
introduced it yet.
right? Like when you didn't tell them to do that. So yeah, you gotta be specific and make sure that they follow instructions. The other thing that we have on here is, if you have, that was more personally for me, because I know Rosie mentioned earlier that she didn't really do that, but like for me, because I do have a second grader, I had to like
Mm.
make sure you communicate with the kid's teacher, right? Like I had
Mhm.
to do that just because I know that he gets a little, sentimental. If both of us are not here and we both happen to be traveling at the same time, and he was staying with the grandparents, which he doesn't do often.
Mhm.
So that was, I had to make sure that his teacher knew what was happening, so that if like homeworks were missed, or if she saw him a little off or whatever, like she understood why that was
Mhm.
happening, and the amount of time that I was going to be away, because anything could happen. And I just wanted to set the expectation so that she was aware what was happening at home. And she actually loved that. She actually said, thank you so much for letting me know. I'll make sure, that I help a little more, or I
Mhm.
give him extra hugs. Like if I see he's sad. So like she really appreciated that I communicated that to her. So if you are able to do that and you have younger kids, granted, like if you have older kids, maybe that doesn't really matter
Mhm.
because they're older and that's not needed. But younger kids, for sure, make sure you communicate to the teacher so that they are
Yeah.
aware.
And I think it still applies. Like, if my son was in a particular sport, I would definitely let them know. But I mean, I read the emails still while I'm gone, and I would say, "Hey, Max," or he would send me a picture. I got to fill out this form because, of course, my mom wasn't to fill it out for him, but I told him what to fill in, and he was like, "Okay." He's like, "All right, is this good, mom?" I'm like, "Yep, good." And so yeah, they figure it out also a little bit. So they grow to be very resilient kids.
And then the next thing we have here, which is a very controversial one, it's letting go of the
Mm.
mom guilt. Because we know, and that if you're a mom, and especially a working mom, you feel guilty. You
Mhm.
feel guilty whenever you go out with your friends. You feel guilty whenever you have to travel for work. You feel guilty about every single thing that you think that you're missing because you're not there. And there's like all these milestones that are happening while you're gone,
Mhm.
that it's just like, it's hard. It's really hard. And I get it. Like we're saying get over it type of thing, but like we
It's
know
still
that
real.
exactly, it's
It's a
still
real
real, and we
feeling.
know that we have to go through that, and we go through it all the time every time we travel for work. So but don't be so hard on yourself. Like I think what I'm just want to say, like I'm not saying like get over it type of thing, because it's still gonna happen, but I feel like just don't be so hard on yourself, and know that there's other people that are like loving your kids, that are taking care of them. It's just as good as you take care of them.
Mhm.
And so I know it's hard, but like if you have mom guilt, it's because you're a really good mom, at
Yeah.
least like in my book.
I'm gonna say this, but I'm sure you had a big mom guilt like the day before you had to leave. I
Yeah.
mean, come back because
Yeah,
it was a
because
big milestone.
yes, because it was my daughter's first birthday. And
Mhm.
so I didn't honestly, and that was one of the questions that I got from like some of my team members. They said like, "Oh my gosh, like it's your daughter's first birthday. Did you cry when you talked to her?" And I actually didn't cry, but she did. And that almost made me cry, but then I was like, "No, don't do it, because
Then she's gonna cry
and she's
more.
gonna cry more and I'm not there." So like it was really difficult, I'm not gonna lie. But then, like I said, I thought about it. She was only turning 1, so she didn't know any
Yeah.
better. And we were celebrating her the weekend after. So for all she knows, that was her
And
actual
everyone that
birthday.
was here as your support system made sure to celebrate her too.
Yeah, exactly. And I got pictures, I got videos. Like she was loved. They celebrated her.
Mhm.
She got a little cupcake. Like it was like better than I could have done it,
Yeah.
honestly, like that one day. So yeah, I felt really guilty, but I knew that she was in really good hands at the end of the day.
Like another thing that I feel guilty is like they get more screen time because I can't expect my mom to be running around with that or play, or my daughter's like, "Mommy, play Barbie with me to play." Like my dad, he's more the active one, so but he only gets there at nighttime. Um, so I can't expect my mom to do it all. She's already exhausted.
Yeah.
Um, but I would feel guilty. Like so, I ordered half through the trip. I ordered them like crafts, things to do, and even though they didn't really care, so it's like I don't know what to do to get these kids more off the screen. And another time I felt more guilt. This time, like my daughter, like, "Mommy, when is it that you're coming? I want to go home already." So you will always be having those moments. I remember you, Jana, sometimes you would say that your daughter would cry when she saw you on the screen. Like she would go and grab, like she would
Yes.
think that if she grabbed
Yeah.
you
And it
guys from there,
wasn't,
you would come.
yeah.
So
But
yes, we get it a lot. And if I remember that it was really hard for me when I was traveling and it was my newborn. That was the hardest, like the whole breastfeeding. I would have to like if I so when she was a newborn, I didn't have to travel far, just like a 3 hour drive. So I would pump in the car. At that time, I had built enough.
enough supply.
I did pump at one of the accounts at their house. Like I did have that type of. She has 6 kids, so it's
So
okay.
she was used to
She understood. I
it.
did in the bathroom, and she understood I was out there the whole time. She was appreciative that I still went out and had a business trip with them. Um, I even on one of the longer trips, I my daughter was already 10 months, couple 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and that was when my milk dried out because I wasn't having that contact. I wasn't pumping at the same times, and so that was a little bit hard for me too. So like when we're talking about mom guilt, like it comes in all aspects. It's very different depending at the age that your child is in, but I was able to say, all right, I breastfed her for the longest that I could, and yeah, she just I just to be to give an example, like I had the proudness of like, oh, I didn't have to give my son. I was able to breastfeed him at the whole until he was a year, but I didn't have the same job that I had now, so. It's just giving yourself grace and celebrating those small wins along the way to help also with that mom guilt.
Hmm. And then we have here, which is really important too, is be present and plan to spend extra
Mhm.
time with your family when you return. We think it's really important to be able to do that because if you're long for that, if you're gone for that
Mhm.
long, I think I mean, like for me, it's very important that I try to spend as much time with my kids, when
Mhm.
I come back, just because like I miss them, they miss me. And
Yeah.
so I want to make sure they understand that like my job is not my priority when I return. Like they're my priority. And I have to make sure that like not so much like make up the time I
Yeah.
lost or whatever, but more like I want them
Being
to
present.
know
They ask you to play, you're gonna play.
exactly, like just
Versus
be
before you're like, wait, I gotta get this done.
right. And so it's like when you get back, like, yeah, you were present at your work for that long where when you were gone, then you got to do the same thing when you come back. So, like, if you have the flexibility to work from home, for a couple of days, like after you come back, like, I highly recommend that just because, like,
Hmm.
when they come home, like, you're already home or like you can pick them up and come home. And it's like the whole like commuting and all that
Hmm.
stuff, like, that makes it
Just
easier. Like,
having
if
to get out the house,
yeah,
basically. It's a
exactly. So,
hassle.
and then the other thing is like if you can take time off as well, like vacation or whatever, like for a couple of days, so you're spending time with your kids, like also do that as well, just because like they will remember those things more than anything else.
Hmm.
So at least that's like one of the things that like I make sure that I come back and spend some time with them. And the other things that we also do that like that is also something that I guess like I'm more intentional about. And I know you mentioned this too. It's like planning activities with them too. So like
Hmm.
making sure that instead of getting them a lot more like toys and things, whatever, like you're actually making memories, like experiences, and like where
Hmm.
you go out and you like if something's happening, like the pumpkin patches if it's the fall, or like the Christmas lights if it's the winter, like
Hmm.
anything like that, or just traveling with them in general. I think like those pre-planned things are very important because they remember those things.
Yes. Yep. And I know you want to get home to your kids. I wanted to do that. I catch the red eye for the first time. And I just want to say this story because I just feel like it's so relatable that like, hey, I want to be present. But make sure to take care of yourself first so you
Mhm.
can be fully present. Because that day that I decided to catch the red eye, I couldn't be present. I tried. I came back, well, it was 10 a.m. My husband picked me up, and he dropped me off at home. He went to work. I took a bath to be able to wake up, but I was still exhausted. My mom had an appointment that day, so I stayed with my daughter at her house for a little bit, got some food. Of course, like I thought she was like mommy and hugs, how she always is. She was like, "Hi, mommy. All right, let's play hide and seek." And yes, we did play hide and seek for like an hour. And I was like, all right, I gotta eat something. I had not ate anything in all day. And I said, hey, I'm gonna take a break here on the couch. I was just eating. You can watch some cartoons. Oh no, mommy, I want to play hide and seek. It's my turn to hide now.
Yeah, that's
Guess what
exhausting.
happened?
Yeah, yeah,
I
you.
fell asleep on the couch and she was hiding, and I felt so bad because she I don't know how long I fell asleep for, but it was for a couple minutes because she came down, mommy. I heard her crying, mommy. I was like, oh my gosh. So I fell asleep while she was hiding. So that's gonna cause her trauma. Like I'm sure she kept thinking about it, like, hey, my mommy forgot about me, because that's what she said. Mommy, you forgot about me. Then at nighttime I wanted to watch a movie with the kids. I mean, like mid-afternoon, I fell asleep. Like I wasn't able to do much. And then it's like I just dragged. I was trying to recuperate for the rest of the days because you're already exhausted without catching a red eye. Imagine catching a red eye. But after that, like it was just I my daughter was like, hey, Christmas tree, you said when you come back. And it was a whole process. It took me like a week to finish that thing because it was like sometimes she would say, hey, let's go play. Or my son was like, oh, let's watch this video. Like one of the things that we did do, I think it was the first or the second day after I got back, he loves YouTube. So he has a lot of YouTuber that he watches, and he told me about how he watched a video. We were in Las Vegas, so he watched a video of an influencer of what he did in Las Vegas. And it was cool that in the video that he was watching, the hotel we were in was there. I was like,
Mm.
Poppy, that's the hotel was at. Some things that they did, I was able to tell him, like, oh yeah, I walked down that street, or like I did this, or I ate that. And then it was like,
And I remember too, she was taking so her and I went out one of the nights because again, like, we want intentionally, and we posted about that too on
yeah,
Instagram. We went to Cafe Lola, and we had been talking about that for months, like, oh, we gotta make it there. So we did. And then
mhm.
I remember she was taking pictures like randomly, like of everything. And I was just like, okay. And she was like, I promise I'm not trying to be a tourist or anything. And I'm not posting this, but I'm sending this
Yeah,
to Max.
yeah,
So I'm
because
like,
he likes to
oh,
see
okay, that makes sense.
what I'm doing.
Right,
Because
right.
it's like, Mommy, what did you do today? So I sent him pictures, and like
And
anything
I
that
thought that was
reminds
cute
me,
because
anything that reminds me of them, take a picture. Like the souvenirs, one of the things that I always bring back is usually a pen, but this time I got them a T-shirt. It was Formula One time in Las Vegas, and my son's a car lover, so I got him a T-shirt that says Las Vegas, and it has car. Like, and then my daughter, I got her one. She hasn't worn hers yet, but my brother loves to do a Cars and Taco show, and she's like, I'm gonna wear it for Theo Eddie's Cars and Taco show. Um, and then after, like this time around, it was like around Thanksgiving time. So we didn't really do much. Like John was like, oh, what have you guys done? I did host Thanksgiving, but what they asked for a lot was to stay home and just
and
like,
spend time with you.
yeah, it was just like, let's watch TV or let's bake cookies. Like we made cookies from scratch, or finally finishing all of the decor, and all their beds now have the Christmas stuff. I had to go out with my daughter and get her bedding because she was the only one that didn't have Christmas bedding. Um, so yeah, it was just all just like more laid back activities versus going out and doing a whole bunch of stuff, because I think they just were a little bit homesick. Even though they loved me at their grandparents' house, they were still like, hey, I want to be at home.
Right. So all of that, right? Those were the tips that we had for you guys, and our personal experiences, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not, again, not anything that we're trying to like, oh, this is like how you should do it, but that's what helped us
Yeah.
and that's what worked for us. So
Mhm.
hopefully you have taken, some notes
Yes,
about.
let me just plug in the self-care thing. I know you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, I
yeah.
have that," pero, um, I love food. I've been told at work I eat like a man, and because I'll eat a lot of the men. But it's like, hey, if you're gonna go out there, try to treat yourself eating food that you like. And one thing that I noticed is that I don't have a skincare routine. And before that, I went to the store and I purchased products that I had not used in the past to make sure. So even though yes, I'm extremely busy, but I was like, I'm not gonna have my kids with me. I should have zero excuses to do my nighttime and my morning time skincare routine. And I remember I was told I was glowing, that I looked great, even though I wasn't getting much sleep because of the time
Time
change
difference, yeah.
zones. But be intentional. We're always advocating for self care to add in something that you enjoy. Like for us, we did a self care thing as on those Latinas. We went to the Cafe Lola. To me, it was like the skincare routine. And I found a pizza place. I love pizza from New York. And I did eat a lot of pizza during that trip. So that was my self care.
I guess my self care was while I was there, even though because our jobs are a little different because
Yeah.
our team puts together the entire
Event.
event. So like we had a like really long days and nights,
Hmm.
but I would like when I didn't want to go out and like actually like eat with other people. My self care, like I'm just the type of person like I'm not extroverter. So I
She
like
needs her downtime to recuperate. She's the one that would be in her bedroom
yes,
by 8 p.m. Don't
yes.
matter who is at her house. She'll be like, peace out. See you guys
Yes, that
another
was
time.
me. So the days that I felt like I couldn't socialize with people anymore, like
You
after
need to
work,
recharge. Yeah.
and I needed to recharge, like I literally would just like grab some dinner and donuts because where we were staying, there were like there was this
See,
place that
donuts was your thing. Pizza was my
yes,
thing.
and that those donuts were delicious. So like I made sure to grab some dinner, a donut, one of the donuts that I loved and enjoyed. Went up to my room and literally like had dinner, took a bath, like a warm bath, and watched a little bit of TV and fell asleep. That's my kind of self care. Like while I was there.
See, and I didn't even turn on my TV because I was like, I want to do my skincare
And
thing.
not that I was
So
watching it though, but I just, but I like that it was
it was
playing in
on.
the
Yeah.
background. So like those kind of things it's what we're trying to say, right? Like
Right.
just make some time for yourself while you're gone. And yeah, while you may have like the mom guilt and all those things while you're away, like just still take care of yourself because like it's very important, especially if you're working long hours and you're away for so long. So that like you're not paying for it when you're here, when you're back to
Hmm.
you with your kids and like
Right.
and it's exhausting and things like that. So still find time to take care of yourself, regardless of what you're doing or where you are and how long you're working.
Yes. So with that said, I mean, let's just close it out as usual. I hope that you were able to write down one thing or take away one thing that you were not doing or that you can improve. We're always a work in progress as moms. Like we don't come with a manual. I remember Jatna, your funny story that you said when your first one was born. Like, is there some type of
Oh
manual
yeah.
for?
Like, are you literally gonna send me home with
Yeah.
him with no
So
manual?
we just learn as we go, and if you're are traveling or sometimes you think about like, oh, I don't want to travel, you have the support system to be able to have a job that you to travel, and but you have that mom guilt, start doing it little by little. Yes, it you have to start so you can kind of get used to it. Some trips are harder than others. Like I took a 3-day trip that was a driving distance, and that one I dreaded. I even sleep that night, and I was just holding my daughter tight. I was like, I don't know why I'm so melancholic. I'm like, I've been doing this for what, almost 7 years, and it doesn't get easier. So it just start doing it little by little. If you are thinking about like, hey, I want to do a job that requires traveling, but I have kids. I have because one thing is having the support system, but then one thing is, are you ready emotionally to be able to do that? So go back and share this episode with someone that you know that is a working mommy, and make sure to give us a like on this video and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And so happy to be here now also on YouTube. So make sure to leave us a comment as well. Muchas gracias, chicas, y
Y
hasta
hasta
la
la próxima.
próxima.
Chao.
Ciao.